welcome back to my channel. My name is Kimberly and this is Booking with the KDB. If it is that you are interested in romance and fantasy reads, then this is the channel for you. Here I talk about the books that I've read, the books that I want to read, as well as I do reviews, wrap-ups, book lists, and all of the lovely booktube stuff that you guys love. I do it here. Yes, so if that is what you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and ding that notification bell so you never miss a video. If it is that you are returning to my channel, I thank you for the support and I appreciate it greatly. So today I will be doing my March wrap up as well as my April TBR. I am really struggling with this video, guys. This is, I think, my third take. It is really kicking my ass. So much so that I had to get a little drink to get my way through it. So I have my Pepsi here. So you will be seeing my mason jar and my straw throughout this video while I talk to you about the books I read in March and introduce you guys to the books that I hopefully will be reading in April. So if you're interested to see what the books I read in March are, as well as the books that I will be reading in April, stay tuned. All right, so for the month of March, it was a rough month for me reading wise because I started the month in a reading slump. It was very difficult for me to get through any of the books that I read, and it was just rough. But with that said, I did end up reading 8 books for March, which is a pretty low number for me, but an improvement considering that for the first 2 weeks of March I didn't read not one book. So yeah, we're happy for that. First book I read, well, not really read, I actually listened to the audio on YouTube, was Resisting the Boss by Whitney G. This was actually an age gap / office romance. With this age gap romance, it's kind of a bit different though, because it was an older woman and a younger boss. So the woman, she was 39 years old, about to be 40, and the guy was 28 years old, about to be 29, I believe. I think the age gap was, she was 11 years older than him. So the guy, he was, I'm sorry guys, I don't remember his name, but he was a tech genius who was the founder and CEO of this major tech company, and he was a phone and laptop developer. And she was a marketing executive, also a divorcee, and a mother of 2 16-year-olds. For this, I gave it a 3-star, or rather, no. Originally, I gave it a 3-star, but then looking back, I ended up giving it 2 stars. I think when I gave it the 3 stars was because it was the first book that I actually managed to finish for March. But looking back at the complexities and how the story unfolded, I ended up giving it a 2-star because ultimately, while I enjoyed it per se, a lot of the issues or a lot of the things that happened throughout the book was unnecessary, and looking back, it rubbed me the wrong way. There was a lot of miscommunication on the part of the female, which annoyed the crap out of me because she was supposed to be 40 years old, divorced, meaning that she was already in a marriage for, I think she was married for at least 10 years. So a lot of the issues or the miscommunication that happened, I did not understand why that was a factor and an issue on her part, seeing as how she should have been a more mature person. Oftentimes it felt as if the younger man was way more mature than her, so I ended up giving it a 2-star. The second book that I read was From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which I absolutely loved. I think this was the book that actually kicked me out of my reading slump, in the sense that after reading this book, I was so excited about reading again that I was able to just breeze through the month. I gave this 4 stars. I did a video on this, which I will link in the card so that you guys can check that out, where I do go in depth to explain why I love the book and why I was excited for this book. The next book that I read was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This I gave a 3-star. I also did a video for this as well. I did it along with the From Blood and Ash, so I coupled those two together as recent fantasy reads. So you guys can check that out if you want to hear my thoughts on Acotar. The next book I read was Reckless Road by Christine Feehan. Christine Feehan is one of my favorite romance authors. She mainly writes paranormal romances, and I have been a devout reader of her for years. She is one of the authors that once there's a book, my automatic buys. Reckless Road is the 5th book in the Torpedo Inc. series. Torpedo Inc. is a motorcycle group or gang that each of the members have paranormal gifts or powers, and they also have a shared history or shared past, meaning that each and every one of them have been the victim of some form of sexual abuse, as well as physical abuse and emotional abuse. So here is where I say, do not go that with this series. It is a darker series than her usual books, and it can sometimes be a very hard pill to swallow, in the sense that it is very heavy. The trauma that they've all faced is extensive and extreme and has taken place over years, and each member of the MC have found different ways of dealing with their trauma. It has resulted in them having various kinks and things that they need in order to survive. They're very dependent on each other, and they function as a group wherein the different members feel as if they can't survive without the other. So as I said, Reckless Road was the 5th one in the series. I enjoyed it, yes. I ended up giving it a 3 stars. What resulted in me giving it a 3 stars was that there was a lot of elements, sci-fi elements there that the author didn't take the time to express, or she did not explain in a way that I could understand. So as a result of that, I was confused about what was happening. Even now, after reading the book, I'm still wondering how what eventually took place in the book was actually possible. And because of that, I ended up grading it lower. Also, I wasn't sold on the relationship between Player and Zaya, in the sense that, so Zaya she has her own special gifts and abilities that coincide with the gifts and abilities that Player have. So as a result, they have this connection as a result of their shared gifts. So throughout the book, you saw where they were able to connect because of that, but I was not sold on the relationship per se, or on the love that was there. I wasn't sold on the fact that they were in love, or that the relationship developed beyond them just being physically attracted to, because they did have explosive chemistry, as well as them having a connection because of their shared gifts. I wasn't sold on the relationship, I wasn't sold on the romance, so that is why I ended up giving it 3 stars. The next book that I read was Twisted Cravings by Cora Riley, which is the 6th book in the Camorra Chronicles Mafia series. I was very excited for Adamo's book. I've been wanting Adamo's book for quite some time, but I was very hesitant to pick it up because the last 2 books that I read for Cora Riley were a bit of a letdown for me. So I was nervous. I went into the book feeling very hesitant. I ended up really liking it. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. So as I said, it is book 6 in the Camorra Chronicles. It features the 4th brother, the 4th Falcone brother, who is Adamo. Throughout the previous books, we met Adamo when he was 14 years old, and he had a lot of various issues, such as he struggled with drug addiction, as well as him being ashamed of who his family was, of who his eldest brother was, and what they had to do in order to survive. So in this book, we saw where the drug addiction wasn't the central focus here, because this was something that he had already dealt with and had moved past. But we saw where he was still kind of struggling with his nature as a Falcone, and with his need or his craving for bloodshed. Dinara, she is a mafia princess from the Russian mob, which is the Bradfa, while Adamo, he was from the Camorra, which is an Italian mob family. The Russians and the Italians, they don't mix, particularly because Dinara's father did not send aid when Adamo was in trouble. So as a result of that, the Camorra and the Bradfa, they were now at war. It wasn't open war per se, but they were definitely not buddy or willing to work with each other. Dinara and Adamo, they bonded over their shared love of racing, as well as they also shared the same vices, meaning that Dinara also struggled with drug addiction, as well as she has a pretty terrible past. Trigger warning or content warning for this one is also sexual abuse, which is a part of Dinara's past. So the book deals with her coming to the realization of what happened to her, as well as her deciding how she was going to move on and if she was going to pay back or seek revenge on her abusers for what they did to her. As I said, I really enjoyed it. They both eventually go on this journey. Dinara trying to seek revenge or absolution or to gain peace with what has happened to her in her past, as well as Adamo trying to figure out where he fits in his family, and if it is that he will ever be able to find peace with himself or with who he is. After Twisted Cravings, I read Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. Yes, so that was the third and final book in the Brown Sisters trilogy. If you have watched my previous videos, you would have known that I absolutely love and adore Talia Hibbert. I love her books, as well as I love the Brown sisters. Now, Eve is the youngest sister, and she is described as being a hot mess, meaning that, for lack of a better term, she can never do anything right. And it seems as if she doesn't really try. So as a result of that, she is 20, I think Eve was 28 years old, or 26 or 28 years old, and at that time she was still heavily reliant on her parents. She has never really held down a steady job, and she relies solely on her parents as well as her trust fund. So eventually her parents get fed up and decide that it is now time for Eve to grow up and stop being childish and to start taking responsibilities for her action. As a result of that, Eve decides to, she just checks out, heads to a different part of the country, where she ends up locating a bread and breakfast. While there, she realizes that they are in need of a chef, and Eve being Eve decided that she's going to go ahead and interview for this position. So she decides that she's going to go ahead to interview for this position. She has no resume, she has no references, nothing. She just walks in soaking wet to go and interview for this position. Now, the other main character is Jacob. Now, Jacob is he is the exact opposite of Eve Brown. He is very organized. He runs his bread and breakfast in a specific way, in a specific order, and he likes things to be done in a particular way. He is also autistic, so he craves order, and from the very get-go, he saw Eve as being a total disaster, and he did not want her anywhere near his precious bread and breakfast, which he worked so hard to build, because as far as he was concerned, she was going to run it into the ground. So upon meeting, they instantly did not like each other, which resulted in him refusing to give her the job. And ultimately, that's where the story begins. I plan to do a separate video where I go more in depth in my review of this book, so you can look out for that one. But for Act Your Age, Eve Brown, I ended up giving this 5 stars because I loved it so very much. I believe that was my only 5-star read for the month. After reading At Your Age, Eve Brown, I read A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I gave that 4 stars. I really enjoyed it so very much. I don't really want to go in depth with this one because I do not want to spoil it for you. But yeah, I gave it 4 stars. Then I read A Court of Wings and Ruin, also by Sarah J. Maas, which is the 3rd book in the Acotar series, which I ended up giving 3 stars. I may do a separate video where I speak on these 2 books, going through it. Maybe do a spoilery video for that. So if I do that, I'll link it down below, and I will definitely share it on my social media pages so you guys can see more of that. Next up, I will be doing my April TBR. For the month of April, I have a lot of fantasy reads as I have decided that I will be diving into more fantasy books, and my TBR is filled with those. I am in 2 book clubs. I'm in a fantasy book club on Discord, as well as a taboo romance fantasy book club. So for those book clubs, I will give you guys the books that I will read in each. So for the taboo romance book club, I also on Discord, I will be reading Dark Notes by Pam Godwin. This is actually a reread, which I am very excited to read and discuss and dive in. So that is what I'll be reading. For my fantasy book club, I will be reading Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. I am very excited for this book. I have wanted to read it for a minute, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. So for Dark Notes by Pam Goodwin, this is a age gap teacher student romance, as well as it does feature elements of BDSM. So definitely taboo. That should be a good reread, should be a good discussion. I will definitely be doing a review video for that one, as well as for Rage of Dragons. Next up, I'll be reading Red Zone by Leslie North. This is a sports romance / enemies to lovers. Basically, the guy, he is a football player, while the heroine is the conditioning coach. And they also have an history wherein I believe she is his best friend's sister. So I'm looking forward to that one. Next up, I will be trying to complete the Acotar series in April. So I will be reading, I've already started. I think I'm 25% in A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. And I will also be reading A Court of Silver Flames, also by Sarah J. Maas. Then up next, I have this, It Takes Two by Jenny Holiday. It is a not enemies to lovers per se, but are rivals to lovers, because they definitely are rivals. They're always competing against each other. So I actually tried reading this book in March. It did not work out because, as I said, your girl was struggling. But I will be giving it another shot. I am definitely interested in reading this book, so I'll be diving in. If I'm not giving you guys a synopsis, it's because I really hate reading synopsis of books before I read them, because I always like to go in blind. So that's why. Next up, I will be reading Shadow and Bone by Lee Bardugo. The book is actually on its way. I should receive it by about Wednesday of this week. I'm planning a book haul video. I have been buying some physical books, so I'll be showing you guys what I've gotten and all of that good stuff. Next up, I'll be reading The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. I'll also be receiving that hopefully by the end of this week as well. The next book that I will be reading will be A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, which is the 2nd book in the From Blood and Ash trilogy by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and I am super excited for this book. As I said, I extremely loved From Blood and Ash, and it was as a result of me loving the book so much and waiting to receive this book that I ended up reading the Acotar series to see if I would feel the same way about it. And I'm just excited to dive in to see what's going on with Poppy and Hawk, and how Poppy is dealing with the recent reveals, with the recent information that she's gotten when she's realized that everything that she has thought, everything that she has believed is no longer the case. I'm interested to see how it goes from there, and I'll be reading it just in time for the release of the third book in the series, which is The Crown of Gilded Bones, which comes out on April 20. Another book that I'm super excited for, which will be released in April, also on April 20th, with Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart. I cannot wait to get my hands on that book because it is set in my island home, and for those who don't know, I am Jamaican, born and raised, and I also currently live in Jamaica. So I'm super excited for that book, super excited for that representation. It is, yeah, I'm excited for that. So that is a YA fantasy debut novel for Shannon Smart, and I'm excited for that release. Now, that will bring us to the end of my April TBR. There is one more YA fantasy on my list that I hopefully will be reading in April, but I'm going to be keeping that as secret because I plan to do a reading vlog for that one. But if I don't do the reading vlog, y'all won't come for me because y'all wouldn't know what the book is. So yeah, so I'm keeping that as a secret for now, but those are the books that I hope to read in the month of April, and hopefully I will get through them. I haven't started any reading as yet. I believe today is the 4th of April. Let me just double check. Yeah, it's the 4th of April. I haven't read anything as yet, but I'm getting there, you know, getting there. But yes, this brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have stuck around to the end, you can go ahead and subscribe. Don't forget to like and comment as well, and share with your friends. And I'll see you soon. Peace.